What's up, guys? It's me, Flips, and today I wanted to kind of give my more updated thoughts on this guy right here. For those of you who don't know, I did have a first impression of this, but this is the Armshark Nami, Titanium Nami handles on the Baliplus Nami, the aluminum Tsunami blade. So I actually had, and still have actually, the DI blade, and I put it on the aluminum handles, and honestly, it kind of saves the aluminum one too, because it's like just very blade biased, and I think it actually makes it kind of more predictable. Interestingly enough, it still wants to get away, but it's like a more predictable blade bias knife than with the original blade. Not my favorite flipper, but still more consistent with that one. But the real star of the show is this guy right here. My initial impressions were honestly not awesome. Like, I mean, it was good. Like, I was impressed by the sound. And of the tolerances. Like, this thing just feels tight. But I didn't realize this at the time. But one of the washers was just a little too tight for the bushing on the safe handle. And as such, it was causing just the teeniest bit of binding. And I only realized it after I finished recording that was kind of the case. And I think that once I fixed it, it changed a lot about how I feel about this guy. To begin with, I actually thought that this guy, the DI, was substantially heavier. And after flipping this more, I've come to realize that they're pretty similar in all realities. I will say, the Aluminami blade is a little lighter, just a little bit. And I think, let's try to show that through here, if we can get close enough. Let's go autofocus. Hello. So if we line these up like this, they're somewhat the same. You see how this this one on the right, which is the Aluminami blade, is slightly thinner up on the top here. It's been rounded more. That's really the main difference. Do you see how much material is still up here on the end? What happens is this one has a little bit more tip weight, whereas this one, I think, is a little bit more evenly distributed with its weight. Not that the other one isn't even. That's probably not the right way to describe it. It just has a little less at the tip. But I think what I was feeling was the combination of that and the binding, which was making it feel particularly wobbly. Now, there is still a slight wobble, just an ever so slight one. But I think that this brings it more in line to like an actual Tsunami, from what I've understood, from what people have said. It's made me think that maybe this guy could benefit from having one or two pins in the handles. But this thing actually flips quite well. I think that I said before, the blade is fine for like milling wise. I think it's the handles on the Aluminami that are uneven, because when I was telling you guys my tuning experience with the Aluminami, I was really struggling to like get good sound with no tap, and that basically means that the machining is uneven either in the blade or in the handles. But putting the blade here on better handles, because Armshark has better machining, it doesn't have that problem anymore. Now it still has play because I didn't loosen it down. I didn't like shave off more, but like this thing has a lot of bounce, and I feel like to that extent, it's like I don't really need to go any lower, because I feel like there's no risk, like there's no reason to incur that risk, because I already have the sound I want, and I don't think it would be that big of a difference if I did make it a little bit tighter on the tolerances. To some extent, actually having a looser tolerance can give you more bounce. It's just like what your priorities are. But Yeah, I've been spending some time with it, and honestly, I haven't really flipped a Nami in a while. And I remember I used to love the Tsunami. I used to love the way it flipped. I still think that this thing flips really well, but I will say that I don't know. Maybe I've outgrown the Tsunami. I don't hate it. Don't get me wrong. I don't hate it, but I'm also not like in love with the Tsunami like I used to be. I think it flips really well, and like when you're like really warm with it, it does flip very competently. But at least with the no weights configuration, I find that I prefer the Baliplus V3 Kraken over the Tsunami. And I think that's just because I think this gives you a little bit more control. I wish this was like double slotted, just so that it was like just barely less handle bias. But I find that this guy has like more predictability, and because the handles are bigger, it is easier to flip. I like thin handles, don't get me wrong, but I think sometimes thin handles, it's like with mouse sensitivity. You can have a high mouse sensitivity, and theoretically, it's going to increase your skill gap because you can do more with less motion. The problem is that you have to be on more consistently. Errors that you make are more demonstrable because you have a higher sensitivity. And it's the same thing with balisong flipping. The thinner the handle, if you make a mistake, you're more likely to see the consequences of that mistake. It's less forgiving to mistakes. So for a good flipper, yeah, this thing's good. Don't get me wrong, I do enjoy flipping with it, but I have to be like warm before I flip a Tsunami. I think a Tsunami with cold fingers and like you're just starting to flip, I don't think it feels great. But for like long sessions, yeah, this thing is insane. Like it's really good. Because it's like you get dialed in, and those small errors, they get smaller. Whereas something like this with handle bias, which is forgiving, and thicker handles, which is also forgiving, you have a lot more leeway. So I feel like for a lot of flipping, you get to like free up some of your cognitive load of like trying to execute the exact trick you're doing right now, and you can spend that cognitive load on something different where you have more room to plan your next tricks or think about what you might want to do. So yeah, I feel like this guy is good, but good with warm fingers. And I don't think it's everybody's knife. I think maybe the Tsunami is a little overhyped. I think it's a beautiful knife, don't get me wrong. But I feel like a lot of people who are like newer to the hobby, it's good to have this, but you could be frustrated by having a Nami. I think it's like good practice because you're practicing on something that would better communicate when you make a mistake. So like you're building really, really strong habits, but I can see how the additional challenge of that could bring people away from flipping because it can be potentially discouraging. Honestly surprised that this kind of turned into that aspect. Maybe that's something to talk about, like thin versus thick handles and such, but overall, I am actually really satisfied with this thing, and it's actually quite similar to the DI blade, so it's basically just like a better DI blade, in my opinion. Just because I think the DI blade, I mean, I got the unpolished one, and it looks kind of like poo-poo. I'm not gonna lie, it looks pretty poo-poo. And this one just has like that cleaner look. People have said, oh, get this guy anodized. I don't think so. I just don't think I'm going to with this one because it's pretty beat. And I feel like the anodization would not look particularly great. I don't want to sand more material off because I think I would just lose the texturing altogether on the handles, which would make this thing really annoying to flip. And I also think that having a silver balisong is nice. Like, there's other balisongs that I will have anodized eventually. The MC Ender, the SKR whatever clone, the Jimpy. Like, these guys will all get, like this guy, I'm planning on having it speed channeled and anodized and sharpened because I got it kind of raw and also a little scuffed up. So this one's going to be a work in progress for sure, but You know, there are some nice, I think it's nice to have a polished look, like a raw polish, because I think it catches really well on a phone's flashlight. So this would still hold that utility, and it'll hold up to being beat a lot better. It'll hide the dings that it has much better than something that is anodized. So those are my thoughts on the Baliplus aluminum blade re-handle on the Armshark Kraken, or the Armshark Tsunami. That was a mouthful. And yeah, if you have the Tsunami, the Armshark Tsunami, I would say get it. Just try it, because it's a false edge. You can get the live. Mine is a false edge. But you can get the false edge, and you have the same thing as that really expensive knife. And if you tune them down, like, you're gonna have to tune yourself. That's the one thing with Baliplus. But if you tune this thing down, like, you can get a lot from it. So if you're up for the investment for both money and time, I think that this thing really does pay off, and it flips a lot better than the trainer. If you like the balance of the trainer on the Armshark Tsunami, I mean, you might like this better. But personally, I didn't really care for the trainer balance. So getting this really fixed the Tsunami for me, at least the Armshark Tsunami. So it's been Pez Flips, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.